As and when. Rudgate Brewery was established in 1992 by two guys who used to work for Bass. They were head brewers for Bass. And when Bass became more automated in the early 90s, the guys got a bit of a payout and decided to set up Rudgate Brewery, which was on this site but in a much smaller building. The location was chosen because the water was good. The access to the motorway networks was good, and at the time the rent was cheap. They set up in a very small brewery. Brewing Viking was our first ever bitter, and Battle Axe. Due to the Rudgate Road which you came down, which was the Roman road that leads into York, where the Vikings and the Romans fought, we chose sort of Vikings as the theme for the brewery. Viking bitter, York Blonde, Battle Axe, the APA that you're drinking is the Valkyrie APA. They're all sort of Viking themed beers. That was how the brewery set up. We're a simple brewery. We use a single infusion mash system, which is basically on the night we've heated the tank up there full of water. We put salts and acids in it to turn it into what we call brewing liquor. And then once we've got the brewing liquor to the correct temperature, about 75 degrees, we load the grist case and we mix it into the mash tun. The brewing liquor and the malt makes what looks like a big bowl of porridge, and that's the mash. And what we're doing with that is we're getting the starches out of the malt to turn the starches into sugar, fermentable sugars, and then we take the wort, as it's now called, which is the sugary liquid, through this underback, which is just a tank. It's a way of displacing the wort into the copper. So we go through the underback into the copper, which is where we boil the wort up. It's not copper, but in the old days they were copper, but nowadays everything's stainless steel. In the copper we add hops. The hops that we add at the start of the boil to give bitterness to the beer, and at the end of the boil we add what we call aroma hops, and that's to give you the sort of the flavour and notes that you get on the beer. The reason we put hops in beer originally was to act as a preservative. The flavour profile was just a byproduct of it, which has become, now what we desire in the beer. So once we've boiled it up, we boil for an hour and a half, put the aroma hops in, we leave it to settle for half an hour, and then we flash chill through a power flow just behind the stand here with cold water from this tank, the wort, from 100 degrees down to 18 degrees, and where we put it in the fermenters. And there we have the yeast, and the yeast turns the sugary liquid into alcohol, and then you've got beer. And from then our beer, 90% of what we do just gets racked straight into barrels and served as cask beer. The other 10% goes to bottle or a tiny little bit into keg, which is playing with keg a little bit at the moment. So the fermenting room's through there. We've got 8 fermenters. We've got 2 really big ones that we've liberated up just today actually, which we're quite proud of. They hold 6,000 litres each. We use those over and above the other ones now. So we brew about 35,000 litres of beer per week, so about 60,000 pints a week. We brew roughly 4 times a week. The process that I've just talked through takes about 8 hours. And then once the beer goes in the fermenting room and we add the yeast, it takes, depending on the strength of the beer, between 5 and 10 days to ferment and turn into alcohol. So the turnaround period from actually mashing in to having a finished product in cask is roughly 10 days to 14 days. We then mature the beer in the fridge unit for 2 weeks, and then it goes out to trade, and you drink it in the pubs. This is the brew house area. We've got the fermenting room in there. We'll go and have a look in there, and we keep all the raw materials upstairs. I won't drag everybody upstairs, but you're welcome to go up and have a look. If you want to have a chat with me about some of the raw materials, I can talk you through those. I'll go upstairs once we've had this chat, and you can come and speak to me about anything you want from the raw material point of view. So we'll just have a little look in the fermenting room. We've got only 3 brews this week. We're a little bit overstocked. So we tend to buy vessels when I can afford them rather than having a nice uniform set of kit. So these two are actually quite nice because that's a match. The rest of the apart from these two, all the fermenters are open top, which is a traditional way of brewing cask beers. We brew most of our Viking and Rudgate in the open top ones. It's a traditional way of brewing the beers, and we tend to brew the triple hop that you're drinking. We brew this one and the APA because they're closed fermenters, so it keeps in more of the hop flavour rather than letting it flash off the top. So the process there is the same, and then the fermentation is just slightly different. So these tanks hold about 6,000 each. That one there, that's at the same time. And the other ones hold about 5,000, 4,500 to 5,000 litres each. So we've got plenty of fermenting capacity for our size. The yeast that we use was brought in by the guys from Basque. It was a Basque yeast from Cannon Brewery in Sheffield. It was a stone yeast, which we got in 1995, and we've used the same yeast ever since. We scoop the yeast off the top of our beers, or these fermenters, we take it off the bottom. We wash it, we clean it, we look after it, we acid wash it every fourth brew, and that keeps the yeast nice and fresh and vibrant and vitality good. There's not many brewers reuse the same yeast over and over again, and that, as well as the malt and the hop flavours, the yeast does give a character to the beer more than a flavour. It is a flavour profile, but it's more of a character to the beer that we're quite proud of, and we don't let anyone go anywhere near our yeast. It's our little baby, it's our little USB, I think, if that's what you want to call it. So yeah, and then because it's the old stone yeast from the Cannon Brewery in Sheffield, it does have quite a traditional character to the yeast. A lot of our beers are more traditional, to be fair, which works well in the modern world where there's lots of new craft brewers opening day in day out with various fruity, hoppy, whatever beers, which are great. You know, there's a place for everybody, but we've always stuck to the more traditional stuff because that's what we know how to brew best. And ultimately, regardless of what's out there, people do still tend to just like a decent pint of beer, which is what we hope to achieve from this brewery. So there's the fermenting room here. Number 8, there's some beer in it if you want to go and have a look, but you just please be careful, there's a little bit of it. Don't take a glass up. Don't drop anything in. Yeah, unfortunately, these are my first purchase from China. They're about half the price of the European things. We've avoided China for years. The unfortunate reality is that these were about 25,000 each, and in Europe you're paying about 45,000. The Chinese was absolute, the kit was rubbish about 10 years ago, but the rubbish companies have shut down, and the 2 or 3 that are open now are better. And it's a UK company dealing with it all. They're based in Shanghai, which is you want to keep it all in the UK, but you can't, can you? Not those cost differences. But we've got these in February, I think, so they're fairly new to us, we're still learning. They're a nice size bit of kit for our sort of scale, which is a small scale in the grand scheme of brewing. But from a microbrewery perspective, we're a decent sized microbrewery, but we're still a very small brewery in the grand scheme. It was a good laugh actually. We had a crate, we had a forklift truck on either side, and one of them was, they brought it in, and then one forklift came in, it's like lifting up, and it sort of dragged them up as they came in. I mean, these guys, it's what they do, they brewery installers, and it was quite impressive to see them get the kit in, because I couldn't work out how they were going to get them in. Don't worry about it. They got them in 10 minutes in. So this is the main brewery side. I'll go back to the bar now and get anyone any more beers, and then I'm going to go stand up on the mezzanine for 10 minutes, and if anyone wants to come up and have a look at some of the raw materials, we can have a chat through them. And any questions at all at any point, just ask. We're here for a while, so feel free to, I won't bore you with too much information, but if you want to ask anything, feel free to ask any questions.
Where do you get your hops?
Hops from all over the world. Our main beers, Viking, Battleaxe, Miles. We use Challenger, which is a UK hop, and Cascade, which is an American hop.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you sort of have a smell in there.
Smell it from here.
So that's the.
Oh. And then where's that from?
I can remember which option it is actually. I'll have to have a look.
There's a nice, I was just saying, there's a nice bottle of beer I bought in.
Which summit? It's American.
Whitstable.
Oh, Whitstable Brewery.
Very, very nice.
Yeah. So what we're getting out of the hops, they've got seeds in the hops. They're a cone, and we get in the bottom of the cone are the seeds with the essential oils in, and the oils have got acidity, which is what they call the alpha acid. And the alpha acid is what we use for the bitterness of the hops, the bitterness of the beer. Sorry. So when you say your paddy bitter, it's bitter because it's got hops, which makes it bitter. And then, so they're the first hops that go in. We use and we boil them up for an hour and a half, and that's just basically stripping everything out of the hop and getting the bitterness. And then probably the more expensive hops, the floral hops, we put in right at the end of the boil and just flash them just so that the hops get into the liquid, and that's where you get your aroma characters from. And that's what stays on the beers, especially in like the triple hop we've got today. You can tell, you can smell the aromas, and we put a lot in at the end of the boiling to give you the sort of fresh, fragrant aromas with the hops.
How long does it take you to experiment to come up with a new beer then?
We do trial brews, but I mean we've been around for so long that I can make a beer and know it's going to taste what it's going to taste like. You know, I can put certain ingredients and hops in a beer knowing from scratch and sell it. Yeah. We do have a trial plan. If I'm going to do something, we did a vanilla mild about 3 years ago. We actually put vanilla pods in the beer, and I wasn't going to just brew that straight off because I'd never done it before. So we played with it. We actually used our Rubabald and put vanilla in that just to sort of see what the beer was going to do. And then we did a new mild recipe and added vanilla pods straight into the casks in the end actually. So a beer like that we'd play with, and you know, we'd do trial brews. But I mean, if you said to me I want to do a 5% IPA using XYZ hop, I could just do it, and it would be what it's supposed to be. I mean, there's loads of different malts, loads of different hops, and you know, there's so many combinations of beers you can make just by putting a little bit of. I'll show you the malts actually. That's an American hop. The main part of the grist we use is just pale ale malt, which is just pale malt that's been lightly roasted, and that gives you about 95% of the starch that you need for the sugar to make the beer. And if you just put that in, you'd get a pale beer like the triple hop. That's just got pale malt in it. And then if you start looking at beers like your stouts, your porters, or even your best bitters, we have things like this, which is the chocolate malts, which are the darker colour malts. And they add colour and a bit of bitterness to the beer. And we use crystal malts, and basically it's all barley, but they just roast them in different stages. So you've got basically crystal malts is paler than that, and that's a chocolate malt. And then they do a roast barley, which is a black malt, which you put in stouts, which is even darker than that. But then you know, you put different amounts of those in different beers, and you get different styles. And we put wheat malt in pretty much all of our beers, just 5%, which gives the head retention of your pint. You can use oats or wheat to give you the creamy sort of retention on the head, and that's fairly standard throughout the industry. We just choose to use wheat because it works for us. A lot of brewers use rolled oats, which they put in the beer. We use rolled oats in the chocolate stout because that gives a real nice creamy sort of texture to the beer. And it's just a tricky sort of trick. It's just a known fact that style of thing helps your beer, but you don't want to put too much wheat in a beer, otherwise you can't clear the beer like your Belgian wheat beers. Anything over 10% wheat in a beer and it won't clear. The findings that we use to clear the beers won't clear it, so you end up with cloudy beer. But in the UK in particular, people don't like cloudy beer. or traditional people don't like cloudy beer. A lot of the new craft breweries are brewing cloudy beer, and because what they're doing is they're putting so much hop in it that it won't clear. And I'm a big believer in balance, and I love a clear pint. But over the years, there's been so much money spent on getting beer presented right and clear and fresh and all the rest of it. And I can drink some of these beers that are out there nowadays, brew dogs and whatever, but I'm a big believer that beer should be clear. That's maybe an old, and I like a pint with a head on it.
I was going to ask you about cellar draft. I suppose this would be like chill filtered, I suppose. The old cellar draft, the old findings.
Yeah, we used to use findings. This is just fines beer. Yeah, and then we filter the stuff that goes into bottles.
Yeah.
And carbonate. Yeah, we sterile filter. The smaller bottle that we use, sterile filters and Robinson's pasteurised.
I suppose once it leaves you, you've got no real control over how it's kept or anything.
But we put findings in the beer, and, you know, if you roll a barrel, it's rough beer, and it's going to settle in the cellar.
So that's done before they leave the brewery, then you put the findings in.
We put the findings in as we rack it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this fire is it isinglass?
Isinglass, yeah.
Still from the sturgeon?
Yes, well, actually, they've just brought out a new findings, which Murphy's are trialling at the moment, who are the guys we use, who are using a non-fish-based findings agent that they've got, which apparently is working, and we're going to do a trial for them next month. Yeah, it's the swim bladder and the sturgeon fish, but the bladders are getting smaller and smaller because the Chinese are starting to use them to make soup out of now as well. So it's actually meant that the bladders are getting more and more expensive and rarer. Yeah. And because they're harvesting them quicker, they're smaller because the fishes aren't getting a chance to grow as big.
So you're getting your fermenting vessels cheaper, but they're nicking all the off.
But they're nicking all the fish so we can find our beer. Yeah.
You've got a good market there, you figure that, for kind of vegan things, of which is a lot.
Yeah.
You can't drink,
well,
it's difficult to drink beer if you're vegan.
Well, the Isinglass Findings has actually got an exemption certificate saying that it is not. The Isinglass Society, of which there is an Isinglass Society, did get an exemption certificate saying that although it's a process aid rather than an ingredient, so legally beer is vegan, even though it's got the swim bladder and sturgeon fishing. However, you put that to a vegan and they've got something to say about it. Yeah. So the only people you're trying to convince are the vegans and the vegetarians. And they don't want to know. So it's only exempt for the people that accept the exemption are meat eaters, I suppose, and they don't have an issue with it anyway. So. but no, they're always looking at different processes. Yeah, and a lot of breweries have naturally cloudy beer because they don't like putting findings in it, which is fine. I prefer it. Yeah. But that's me. Maybe I'm an old-fashioned. Traditional, yeah.
Not old-fashioned.
When it's cloudy.
Well, I don't know where we put into when we set the brewery. I didn't set the brewery up, but in the early days, to get every pint crystal clear every time, it took a lot of work. A lot of experimenting and a lot of trialling. And then,
if you brew your own, getting it clean to me is quite tough.
Yeah. Oh, it is, yeah. Yeah, well, they give you findings, but it's not the same as the stuff we use.
Yeah.
The liquid findings is a different kettle of fish, yeah.
But in the old days,
no pun intended. It does stink as well, the findings, it really does smell. And it does
in the old days, I was realised the cake was like, the crucifix to a vampire or garlic, wasn't it? There's quite a few breweries now that go down the keg route.
Well, we do keg as a service for pubs in York that can't sell cask, hotels, restaurants, pubs that can't sell a 9-gallon of beer in 5 days. So we put the Jorvik Blonde into keg, and Valkyrie was just starting to put into keg. But we don't do a lot of it. It is, as I say, it's purely a service product. I'm not trying to be cool and trendy by doing it. It is what it is on the ticket. If a pub cannot sustain a cask of beer, they can't sell it at the time, then they put the keg on, and it's better than nothing.
That comes down to Telegraph again. If it's moving fast, you don't have to do quite as much.
No. And the keg, we sterile filter the kegs, and a keg will last for 12 months.
Is that working out reasonably well then?
That's good.
Well,
we don't overly push it. If it's just Churchill's Hotel in York, the Jorvik Hotel in York, they put the keg on because they don't sell cask and they don't sell 10 pints a week, just in the hotel. So it works great for them. They've got a local product that they've got they can afford to put on because they're not wasting, throwing it away every week. So it's right.
So if they tried it on the keg, they'll probably go out into York later on and get these.
I'd rather have cask all the time. We're national, really. We deliver direct from Morpeth down to Lincoln, sort of across each coast every week. And then we've got wholesalers in Birmingham, Gravesend and London for us. And LWC, somebody talks about them earlier. They're a national wholesaler who we supply, and they do sort of Cornwall and wherever. But it's so spread out, you struggle to find it, And then we do rotations. We've just been on with Mitchell and Butler Pub Company, which are a national pub company, predominantly London-based. But we've been on for 3 months with those with the beer that we did. So it gets about, But York is our the East Coast is our best area in York. Physically the East Coast, because there's less breweries on the East Coast than there is anywhere else in the country. We do really well. Sort of Newcastle we do well, Scarborough, Filey, Bridlington, sort of down Hull area we do well. Gould, sort of Cleethorpes and Grimsby and There's a lot of Wetherspoons around there. We do a lot of.
What about Sunderland and Middlesbrough? I must admit, I've never seen your beer, and I drink a lot of beer.
We do. I know we definitely do. There's two Wetherspoons in
The race memory has been retrieved and replayed.
We do go to it. We do a lot of enterprise pubs and Wetherspoons.
I mean, fourth city.
But again, it's one night. It's on and off the bar in a day. It's, you know, it's 1 night out of 10 nights. And yeah, it's gone. Yeah. If people say to me, where can I find your beer in Newcastle, I'd struggle. But if you said to me, where can I find your beer in York, I could send you to 10 pubs where it's on permanent. Morrison's, Asda, Co-op, Waitrose, but we're only regional. Like Waitrose, we're only in 4 stores because there's only 4 stores in this part of the country. Morrison's is regional. We're in 60 Morrison's. Co-op, pretty good. Booths are the only supermarkets. We're in all of them, but then they've only got 32 or 4 supermarkets, which is nice supermarket. Two bits of the closest one is and then it's all over Cumbria. And as the, I can tell you what I noticed in Harrogate, I couldn't tell you Robinson's at Brewery, so they turn up with the tanker, ship it down there, and then I've got there's Remis's transporter on business park just down the road, and they go to Wales every day with a full Arctic, come back empty. So when we've got some bottles there, they for a reasonable number of feet, just nip in there and bring it back. Yes, it works well. Yeah, we have quite well. They've all got. Yeah, I mean, when you do a batch of bottles, you get up with 25 pallets. We've got 5-6 different bottle beers, so you can have quite a medium heavy stock of bottles. Sometimes it runs down, and sometimes you can't. You're tripping over. You can't judge it. And the virgin stuff's the biggest stock of bottles. They can order nothing 1 week and 10, 12 pallets the next week, but they average about 5 pallets a week.
When you pour it,
So we work on 5 pallets a week. Obviously, we get a bit of a stock.
Yeah, and then you knock it back a bit. But to do the bottling, from brewing it to bottling it to getting it back takes about 6 or 8 weeks. So you've got to be well ahead of your game. And I can't just look at cask beer. I can brew it this week and sell it in 2 weeks' time. So you can be fairly reactive with cask beer, whereas bottles you've got to plan it in a bit more. And like the supermarkets buy their Christmas beers in August, September time. Physically take the stock in. So you think, oh God, August, it's getting busy. We need to brew more, but actually you don't, because come end of October they don't buy any more for March.
So you can just sweat it out.
Yeah, and it's very hard. The supermarkets don't give you any forecasts.
That's Hambleton. It's on the way.
And if you can't do it, you get kicked out. Which is the problem on a small scale.
Like Shipwich.
Yeah. I better get down. It used to be 6% at the end of it. Anybody for an APA or a triple? Yeah. It orders the flavour one.
There we go. Anybody for a Ruby? Ruby on triple hot? Yeah.
Can't remember what I had before. Looks like a Ruby bar.
Was it like that? Yeah. Could I try a light one?
First can, triple hot? Yeah.
Thank you.